Sarvabhutatma Vigraham Tadgacha Dhruva Bhadram Te Bhagavantam Adhoksajam Sarvabhutatma Bhavena Sarvabhutatma Vigraham Tadgacha Dhruva Bhadram Te Bhagavantam Adhoksajam Sarvabhutatma Bhavena Sarvabhutatma Vigraham Tat, therefore, Gacha, come, Dhruva, Bhadram, good fortune, Te, unto you, Bhagavantam, unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Adhoksajam, who is beyond the concepts of material senses, Sarva Bhuta, all living entities, Atma Bhavena, by thinking of them as one, Sarva Bhuta, in all living entities, Atma, the Supersoul, Vigraham, having form. My dear Dhruva, come forward. May the Lord always grace you with good fortune. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is beyond our sensory perception, is the Supersoul of all living entities, and thus all entities are one, without distinction. Begin, therefore, to render service unto the transcendental form of the Lord, who is the ultimate shelter of all living entities. Repeat this one. My dear Dhruva, come forward. May the Lord always grace you with good fortune. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is beyond the sensory perception, is the Supersoul of all living entities, and thus all entities are one, without distinction. Begin, therefore, to render service unto the transcendental form of the Lord, who is the ultimate shelter of all living entities. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Here the word Vigraham, having specific form, is very significant, for it indicates that the Absolute Truth is ultimately the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is explained in the Brahma Samhita, Satchit Ananda Vigraha. He has form, but his form is different from any other kind of material form. The living entities are the marginal energy of the Supreme Form. As such, they are not different from the Supreme Form, but at the same time, they are not equal to the Supreme Form. Dhruva Maharaj is advised herewith to render service unto the Supreme Form, and that will include service to other individual forms. For example, a tree has a form, and when water is poured onto the root of the tree, the other forms, the leaves, twigs, flowers, and fruits, are automatically watered. The Mayavad conception that because the Absolute Truth is everything, he must be formless, is rejected here. Rather, it is confirmed that the Absolute Truth has form, and he is all-pervading. Nothing is independent of him. Om Agana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chaksura Militanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamin iti namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi. Gauravani Pracharane. Nirvisesha Sunyavadi. Paschachade Satarane. Vanchakalpa Trubhyascha. Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha. Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo. Namo Mahavadanyaya. Krishna Prema Pradayate. Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya. Namani Gora Tushe Namaha. Hey Krishna, Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate, Gopesha Gopika Kanta, Radha Kanta Namostate, Tapta Kanchana Gaurange, Radhe Vrindavaneshwari, Vishabhanu Sute Devi, Pranamami Hari Priya. Jai. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai. Dhruva Maharaj ki jai. Lord Chaitanya especially liked to hear the Dhruva section of the Bhagavatam, and Prahlad mentioned that. He read everything, but it's a mystery, transcendental, that Gadadhar and Lord Chaitanya together, that's Radha and Krishna, but they would read about Dhruva and Prahlad. You know, it's not the thing that most people would think. You know, they would want to hear about Braj Leela or something. They heard everything, but they especially like this section. I was thinking yesterday that you and I think, Prabhupada mostly didn't say I did something. He always said we. Maybe that's why he would say we did this, we did that, when, you know, it was him. But him and Krishna, always, he never thought he's independent of Krishna. So here's further instruction and on enlightenment about what is this Achintya Beta Beta Tattva, which is actually this fourth thing, you know, from each sampradaya, Lord Chaitanya took two main things, and then he finished off everything and perfected everything with this axiom of Achintya Beta Beta Tattva, simultaneously one and different. Otherwise there was a Dvaita and Vishishta Dvaita, this and that, and what's the difference, and how the soul, and what's the same, and it's confusing. Prabhupada didn't pay a lot of attention to that. We were in Hyderabad with Prabhupada in 1975, I think, and at a house program, somebody asked something about Advaita, Vishishta Dvaita, whatever they are. Prabhupada just more or less ignored the question and went on preaching about Krishna. Although that knowledge is there. But it all comes out in this. So he's saying that, well, he's blessing Dhruva. Dhruva's already blessed, of course. He already did such tapasya that he attracted the Supreme Lord himself to come. Dhruva is an example, that maybe the topmost example, that how even though someone approaches the Lord with arta jigyasa, artarti, he was distressed. He didn't exactly want money, but he wanted position. He wanted, you know, to be the bigger than his father kingdom. So it's like the inconceivable big material desire. He wasn't just asking for a palace, he was asking for kingdom like the whole universe. And even though he was only 5 years old, but Narada Muni blessed him by giving him instructions how to get it. But the process was to worship Vishnu, to make a murti, and to chant Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So he did that very, very intensely. So intensely that he was so intensely practicing it, he forgot all about his motive. And then he somehow did these incredible austerities. And it disturbed the whole universe, so Vishnu came to ask him what he wanted. And when he actually saw the Lord, then he just said, I was a fool, I was just after broken pieces of glass, and I don't want anything. I'm completely satisfied just to see the Lord. So he's teaching us, by example, that when you get Krishna, then you have everything. And otherwise you can't have everything. There's always more. There's always something more. There's always somebody richer, somebody more famous, somebody more beautiful. There's many stories trying to teach children that. Do they have that story here, Snow White? Right? So the wicked witch had the magic mirror, every day, who's the most beautiful? Oh, you are, you. Oh, very good, very good. Then one day it said, no, there's someone more beautiful. And she went completely crazy to annihilate the other person. So this, and Prahladananda Swami used to say like that. We do that every morning, looking in the mirror. Who's the best devotee? Who has the best tilak? Then we realize when we go out, everyone's better if we're fortunate. So he's given him all good fortune, which he already has the blessings of Vishnu. And he says how the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the super soul of all living entities. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, when someone realizes that I and the super soul are the same, but not that it's all one, but there's the individual, there's the Bhagavan, and then he expands, and that's the super soul, who's also the same in many ways, but his function is different. He can't be perceived, no matter how big microscope they get, they're never going to see the super soul. They can't even see the atom. They've been trying at great expense. And we have pictures, but according to Sadaputa, our scientist, said they've never really seen the atom, they just speculate what it looks like. And Prabhupada said they make up words, neutron, proton. They made up a lot of new ones now, synchronicity, and many different words, and they just juggle these words around, trying to explain the universe and to explain the atom, to find the origin of everything. My question yesterday was interesting. People say, well, the elements are always there. They're always existing, but they're not always put together in the way we perceive the elements. And when it's Pradhan or Mahatattva, they're just a big something. But then when Krishna enters and the time factor comes, then things are put together and the different elements are combined to create all these different forms. So we can never see by our gross senses. We can't see so many things. Things are too small, things are too big. We can't see things that are too big either. We can't see things that are too close or too far away. No matter what kind of magnifying thing we get, we can't see everything. So all living entities are one without distinction. That means one in quality, but not in quantity, not in, the living entity, the individual soul. We have powers. It can even have mystic powers. There's many mystic powers built in, but Prabhupada said we have to give them up to go back to Godhead. If one is attached to mystic powers, even the tiny mystic powers we have, Prabhupada said that, because people were very much following the Bhagavatam at that time, that long hair was something beautiful and wonderful. So Prabhupada said, the growing hair, that's a mystic power. Nobody can explain how hair grows. He said, you have to give it up. So many things in the body, we can cut and it heals, and it's all mystic powers, but it's all part of the body. And someone can do tapasya and get, all kinds of mystic powers. Mostly who has the mystic powers in the Vedic, in the Bhagavatam, is the demons. The Rakshasas, they use all kinds of mystic powers to fight. And Dhruva, just a little while ago, he was fighting the Yakshas, and they were using all kinds of mystic, illusory powers, magical powers, to make it seem like something that's not there is there, and make it very, very realistic. So there's even magicians now who can do things like that. They can hypnotize even a crowd and make them think that the Empire State Building disappeared, or the Statue of Liberty, because they're doing it in America, or the Eiffel Tower, and the crowd can't see it. They were looking at it, and all of a sudden they don't see it. The small mystic powers they get. And they can make them think something's there that isn't there. And that happens to us all the time, but Krishna is a supreme mystic and is supreme powerful, so we can't think that we can compare to him. And it's mentioned here that the Lord has specific form, and the living entities have form too, but we take so many different forms according to desires. So there's 8,400,000 different forms, whatever, so-called species. The word is vigrahas, the word in Sanskrit is forms. So it's not exactly, devotees have tried to ask Prabhupada, how can you know? Is it like amongst the humans? Is it the Chinese and the Africans and the Europeans, or those different species? But according to science, they're not different species because they can all combine and produce progeny. Different species, cats and dogs. There are many different types of dogs, and they can combine and create different dogs. But dogs and cats can't do that. Monkeys and humans are very similar in so many ways, but they can't do that. So there's different forms, and so many but we're looking for the supreme form, Krishna's form, and to worship the form of the Lord. So he kindly appears. He takes all these different forms for the pleasure of the devotees, actually, all the different avatars. They're all coming from Krishna, the supreme form. But even like King Indra, he can take any form. The demigods can do that. The Rakshasas can do that. Ravana could do that. Hanuman could do that. Could take any form for a specific purpose. Indra does it to seduce women. Takes the form of the husband of the woman and tricks them. So that's not very good. That gets him in trouble. Ravana, he took the form of a sannyasi to seduce a woman. Prabhupada said that was the worst offense of everything he did, to utilize the form of a sannyasi to seduce a woman. There are so-called sannyasis nowadays in the world that do that. People are attracted to, renunciation, so they imitate it. But that's not a very good idea. But we have to renounce, we have to take up spiritual life. So there's Krishna's Satchidananda Vigraha. He has form. He's eternal, he's full of knowledge and bliss. and Vigraha, form, and that form is unlimitedly charming. And all the incarnations, even the Varaha, do they have those kind of animals here in Germany? The boar, those wild pigs. You ever seen one? Huh?
Yes, the tusks are not so long, but they are there.
Yeah. Would you consider it beautiful? I saw some in a zoo, and not only were they so frightening looking, and the smell was like so heavy, abominable smell. But when Varaha appeared, the demigods were praising the beauty. Even though he was in that form, he was unlimitedly beautiful and decorated with crowns and jewels and, and shaking his body, and the demigods wanted to get that water on their head, just like we want to get the water from the Arctic. So whatever form Krishna takes, it's wonderful and beautiful and charming. The lion, we have Nrsimhadev here. He's very merciful, of course. He's a special mercy, even though he's so fearful to the demons. But for the devotee, he's completely charming. I was kind of in Mayapur, if anybody was there, they opened up the new Nrsimha section of the new temple. You see it? So anyway, Nrsimha is way up, far away from everything, but way up high. And I was thinking, in the temple now, he's right there. He's like so close. And he's right at, only up a little bit. So even the children, they always come right up to the front, and and he's very nice, even though he's in this Ugra Nrsimha form, bursting out of the pillar with all the weapons and everything. He's completely nice. When they were getting the murti made, first, none of the murtiwalas would make the Nrsimha form, this Ugra Nrsimha. They were afraid. And then one, consulted his guru, and he said no. But then when they found out it was for Mayapur, he said, it's all right. In Mayapur, he'll be nice. He won't be in a destructive mood. So you can see that. So I was thinking, now he's going to be so far away, that you can't just come and put your fruits and flowers, and he's right there, So it's an advantage that it's such a wonderful place for him, but he's always like that. He's very, very kind, very beautiful, even though he's in the form of a lion. But like the lion is fearful for most people, but for the lion's cub, is not fearful at all. For the lion cub, the mother lion, her teeth are she picks up, and carries them someplace for safety. Even the mother cat, that example's there many times. For the rat, the teeth of the cat is very, very fearful, the mouth of the cat. And cats are very cruel. If you ever seen a cat with a mouse, they beat it up for a long time, play with it, and then they pick it up and just rip it apart. But for the kitten, it's the mouth of the cat is what picks, when the kitten gets lost from the nest or something, and mother picks it up and puts it back to safety. So we're simultaneously one and different from the Lord, qualitatively the same, and we're also advised to worship the Supreme Lord. This is the duty of all of us to teach others. I was just reading about Narada Muni and the sons of Daksha. And he convinced those first 10,000 sons who were sent to do tapasya to become empowered to produce progeny, to populate the universe, and Daksha. So they were doing really great tapasya. And Narada Muni saw, their good qualities, so he preached to them in a very mysterious way, the way he talked. And they understood perfectly. So they gave up. They all became sannyasis. They didn't go back to home. They went out to preach. So Daksha, at that time, he wasn't very happy, but he produced another 1,000 sons. And then Narada Muni saw them, and his preaching to them was more simple. He just said, I know you love your brothers, your older brothers, so you should follow their footsteps. And so they did. So then Daksha was really angry. And Narada Muni went to personally tell him, and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur described that Narada had saved, starting from the Manu and down all the ancestors. He'd liberated everybody by preaching to them, but he had failed. Daksha it was too materialistic. So he went to Daksha to try to liberate him also. But Daksha just chastised Narada Muni. Said, you dress like a sannyasi, but you're a rascal, and you don't understand. I'm a better sannyasi than you, even though I'm a householder. And, because they have this idea that everyone has to go through all the four orders of life. And nowadays they think, nobody should renounce. Everybody's a Sudra. They want to stay and enjoy Grihamedi life, their whole life. Grihastha life is different. That's Vanaprastha already. But so Prabhupada is saying how he's had the same problem with the parents of his disciples. He said, but it's our duty as representatives of Narada Muni, in the line of Narada Muni, and he said, my disciples preaching are the same as Narada Muni because they're teaching the same thing. So they're teaching young people, not only boys. Daksha, then he had daughters, and Narada Muni wouldn't bother to tell the daughters to renounce. But in Kali Yuga, Prabhupada, he didn't discriminate, and everybody renounced. Everybody gave it up to preach. And that's very good. So Prabhupada, he was cursed, the movement was getting sued. Some devotees in America their parents were suing the movement for brainwashing and taking their sons away from their family. And they had to go to court. Prabhupada said, take all the books, into the courtroom and tell the judge to read all the books. And they actually did that. I don't know if the judge read all the books, but they did understand. And they said the Hare Krishna is bona fide and it's good and it's a bona fide religion. But we had a lot of trouble. And so he said, I've been cursed and I can't stay anywhere for very long. And I hope some of my sannyasi disciples, they can take that curse also and travel all over the world. So we try to do that. There are many doing that now. Some of our more prominent young sannyasis, I see every day they're in a different city. I was like, all over the world. But it's our duty to preach everyone to give up materialistic life. Not necessarily become sannyasis, but to give up the materialistic life, to give up for sinful activities. And many parents have, in America we had these deprogrammers. They were claiming that devotees were programmed to, and they have to be deprogrammed, they have to get back to normal. And they would call the parents and say, your kid is in the Hare Krishna, and they don't let your kid eat any meat. And American boy can't live without meat. And they don't let him drink any beer, and they don't let him sleep, But if you give us enough money, we'll rescue them. So they finally got arrested and finished off. They went to Europe. I don't know how successful they were there, but that's always going on. It went on from very beginning. Daksha, he cursed Narada Muni then that he couldn't stay anywhere. But Narada Muni never stayed anywhere anyway. But Daksha, being a very attached householder, he thought this would be the worst curse possible, that he can't stay anywhere, can't settle down. When Narada went to Vrindavan, he wanted to, see the rasa dance or something. And then Krishna told him, you should stay here in Vrindavan and you should write books. And then he said, I can't stay. I am cursed by Daksha. And I can't stay anywhere. It was a couple of days. Krishna laughed. He said, no, in Vrindavan it doesn't apply. Vrindavan is the transcendental world. It doesn't. That's in the material world, but here so he did stay. It's a beautiful place, kind of opposite of Kusum Sarovara, called Narada Kund. And I was there just recently. I was there many years ago, and it was a small little place in the forest, all forest, and very, you could really understand Narada Muni sitting there and writing books. Now they've dug it out and they built, brick things all around, and it's very nice, but it doesn't have that same atmosphere anymore. But they're really trying to upgrade the Vrindavan because so many people are coming. And by Prabhupada's mercy, so many people are coming to Vrindavan. It's just unbelievably crowded. Any time of year now. There are seasons when there's more people, but sometimes we think we preach too much, we can't even get in the temple room. Devotees can't get in. If you have to go for Mangal Artik, you have to go like a half hour early to get in. But that's what Prabhupada wanted. He wanted people to get there and get the benefit, the dust of the Holy Land, and get to Kirtan. Our temple's full of Kirtan, prasadam. So all these things are happening everywhere. More and more people are coming, more and more books are being distributed. And that's how we're going to take over the world. We don't have to make war or revolution. That won't help. It has never helped in the history. Of course, the Kurukshetra war, that helped. Ravana. But in those days it was different. There was actually two sides. It was good. There was a pious side, the Pandavas. They're guided by Krishna. They're worshiping Krishna. They're going to teach everybody to worship Krishna. And then there was a demoniac side that's against God. Now it's not like that. Everyone's the same. They just a little bit talk different. Like one of the candidates, the American president now, one of the big platforms is, I will make sure that every woman has a right for abortion. without any conditions. So it's not very religious, whatever they're talking about. But we're just guided, teaching everybody worship Krishna, give up the four principles, the four sinful principles. Gradually then all the other, minor sinful activities will come under control. And worship Lord Nrsingadev. Lord Nrsingadev has purified the heart. He's the real heart surgeon. He can take out all the dust and dirt, all the envy and greed and anger, lust and illusion, all these things that are residing in our hearts. Lord Nrsingadev purifies them. He can take it out. Then we can become qualified to actually worship Radha and Krishna. But, Nrsingadev, I was reading that book yesterday, your prayers, and there's some place where Prahlad says Govinda. So it says Prahlad is worshiping Krishna, because Govinda is Krishna, but, the original form of Krishna. So Prahlad was not at all bewildered by the form of Nrsingadev. He was never fearful. Nrsingadev was thinking, why aren't you afraid of me? Everyone else, the demigods, they were fearful. They had never seen such an angry form of the Lord before. They don't actually see Vishnu that often. They go to the shore of the Milk Ocean and then they can pray to Vishnu. But they were afraid to approach him. They tried. The demigods' prayers are very wonderful prayers, very beautiful, but mostly in the mood of awe and reverence. They're glorifying the power and the glory and all these things. But Prahlad, that didn't pacify the Lord. But when Prahlad's prayers, which are just full of bhakti and love and submission, then Nrsingadev became very, very happy, like a mother cat, So we learn the Bhagavatam section about Lord Nrsingadev is one of the biggest, I think, the most chapters of any particular Leelas, but most of them are about Prahlad. Here we have Nrsinga, Prahlad, Nrsinga. Prahlad is the, example, what we should be, how to learn to pray, how to learn to be fearless, how to learn to depend on the Lord. If we depend on the Lord, then nothing is impossible. And if we forget the Lord and think I can do it myself, then everything is impossible. So it's the same thing about Lord Chaitanya. For one who's thinking of Lord Chaitanya, then the most difficult things become very easy. And when we forget Lord Chaitanya, even the most easy things become difficult. One devotee gave a good example. He said, the bead bag becomes too heavy. You can't pick it up. If we're trying to think, I'm a great chanter or something. But if we're depending on Krishna, trying to please the Lord, then He can empower people. And we see devotees all over the world doing, amazing things in every different kind of way. Whether it's creating temples, making devotees, distributing so many books, or just being completely steady, coming from all kinds of, degraded backgrounds and becoming Paka pujaris and brahmanas and Sanskrit scholars. It's all the power of Srila Prabhupada and his complete dependence on the Lord and the mercy of Lord Nityananda. One devotee was coming. Sometimes we worry, I'm not good enough. That psychiatrists say that most people that are really disturbed, their biggest question is, I'm not good enough. and therefore I can't succeed in life, I can't succeed in marriage, can't succeed in my job, or we can't succeed as a devotee. But everyone is good enough for for Nityananda's mercy. In fact, the more degraded we are, the more he takes pity. So we're very fortunate. And Lord Nrsingadev would drive away all the demoniac mentalities. So let's meditate on Dhruva Maharaj for now. He didn't want the kingdom, but he got it anyway because he wanted it in the first place. That's why he went into his, but he was guaranteed to be protected. Prahlad didn't want to be the king. It's a headache. But Nrsingadev guaranteed him that he won't get overwhelmed by being the king of the universe. He'll always be able to continue, remembering me at every moment. So he took the job thinking, well, I can, make all the demons into devotees. So we like to influence governments enough that they start teaching Bhagavad Gita in the classrooms. Some places that's going on. In Bali, Indonesia now, we're always having a campaign for people to sponsor books because so many schools are asking, for Bhagavad Gita to give all their students. So it's hard to keep up even, but we want that to happen everywhere, where people are teaching Bhagavad Gita as it is. And if they're not doing that, we create our own sanctuaries, bhakti vrikshas or temples, whatever we want to call it, places where people can come and study Bhagavad Gita. Devotees are coming up with lots of ingenious, indirect ways to get people to come and give them spoon feed, Bhagavad Gita, little chanting, and gradually they more and more, and attracting, bringing people to Vrindavan for pilgrimage. So many things are going on in a short time, so we can imagine what's in the next 50 years from now. We might be here, might come back again and to help or to get helped, depending on how much advancement we made. So we'll stop and look for comments, especially further enlightenment or questions. Yesterday we had a lot of questions, good ones. All right? Danke. Yes, sir.
You talked about devotee feeling inferior, and one should, isn't it? One should feel inferior. One should have an inferior consciousness. But where is the border, so that it do not have an inferiority complex, that you feel completely unable to do anything? Where do you draw the border? Trying to be humble and being depressed.
That's a good question. Why do bad things happen to good people? Why do good things happen to bad people? Humility, there's a saying, it doesn't mean to think less of yourself. In other words, I think they call it now low self-esteem. I'm no good. I'm too ugly. I'm too weak. I'm too stupid. I'm too poor. That's not humility. Humility means to think of yourself less, not think of others. In other words, think of Krishna. So we think, I'm not qualified, but Krishna will help me. Then it's, we should think I'm low, I'm fallen, that will attract Krishna, but Nartam Das Patit Pavana. If you're looking for the most fallen, and you don't have to look any further. Here I am. But it's glorifying Krishna. And then if we depend on Krishna, then even the most lowly person can do wonderful things. So I don't know exactly how you draw the line or something. We just get, like you said, inferiority complex, now they call it low self-esteem, or, a false idea of humility. Prabhu, can you go out and do something? No, I'm no good, I can't do that. No, I'll try, And if someone prays to Krishna, help me, they can do wonderful things. I had experience when I was first a devotee. Gradually I forget all the time, but when you're totally helpless and begging Krishna to help, then even if you have absolutely no qualification, can do things. So like Dhruva, he somehow believed Narada Muni. He had no idea what, saintly person or Narada Muni or anything, but he just believed him. Narada had faith in him, and he just intensely worshipped the Lord. And then he became, so powerful. Is that all right? You want to explain it?
Yes.
Anyone else?
Sorry?
Or you want to explain more?
No, thank you. It's fine.
All right. Ladies?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much. It was a beautiful lecture, and I really liked so much at the beginning when you spoke about how Prabhupada would always say we, and he built this Krishna consciousness, this family, and with the mood that like we are part of the same body, we are the same part of Krishna. And I wanted to ask you if one thing that I noticed in my own life, and that there is, even though we're part of the same, we are also individuals, so we are also very different. And I feel like sometimes it just becomes very hard to remain yourself and also be like connect that it's not me, but I'm just part of a bigger purpose. I'm part of that I can't necessarily, like on my own, I can't do as much as I can do when I feel that I'm part of this bigger mission that Prabhupada has brought. So how can we kind of remain ourselves at the same time, connect to just really with each other, even though we have all different, there are so many different gurus and so many, sometimes it feels like every temple is like different and different moods and different, like there's so much difference, and at the same time, these differences, they kind of separate us, and then it becomes more, less spiritual in that sense, like somehow when there is too much differentiation at the same, like it's just so hard to connect spiritually at the same time, just really going beyond the differences, and at the same time remaining yourself. Like, how is it possible to develop that consciousness?
One thing, don't worry about it so much. We're all individuals, and all the individuals are needed. the differences, create something, We don't want to just all be zombies or whatever. Like people used to criticize in the early days, whenever they saw devotees, they were all brahmacharis, all shaved head, all tilak. All the women had the same color sari, and they had their head covered, and they had tilak. So they're saying a brainwash is just like one. Nobody has any individuality, and it ruined their independence. But then some psychiatrists tested devotees and said that they're actually more individual than the people, because everybody's trying to, be part of some group, mostly. But part of the group doesn't mean that, like in a band, for instance, there's so many different instruments, say in an orchestra. So they're all part of the orchestra, but they all have what they're supposed to play and when they're supposed to play and how they're supposed to play it to make the whole thing wonderful. If everyone just played the same note, it wouldn't be a very interesting concert, right? So everybody, you like the individuality. Everyone keeps their individuality, but that makes the whole something more wonderful. So we don't have to merge into something, and it's a problem that everybody faces. One famous singer back before I was a devotee, still very famous, but he said, I try so hard to be just like I am, but everybody wants me to be just like them. But you can't just be exactly like anybody else, because we're all individuals, and we all have, according to scripture, according to Jiva Goswami, special individual relationship with Krishna that no one else has. So by, participating, in the kirtans and in the group activities, we remain individual, but we enhance the whole group. We don't want to merge into nothingness or into oneness. We want to become more of a personality, more of an individual. That happens with all devotees. They become out gradually more and more. Help? Yeah. So it's how to, stick with it, chant every day, follow the program. It works. And, we may feel like I'm not making any progress. But if you keep trying, that means progress. If you do it the next day, another day, that's progress. It's like if you're walking, you want to walk to Berlin or something, you may not be able to perceive like you're really getting there. But if you just keep walking, and you have your Google map, then you'll get there. But you can't see your progress very much day by day. All right? Any other explanation there anybody have? These are common type questions because we all have these feelings. We want to fit into the group and be, just like if you're in a band, you want to play your part nicely, but you're an individual. That part is important for the whole thing. You may not be a big soloist, maybe in the background, but it's still important to support the soloist. like there's a few people now in our movement that are renowned kirtan leaders. So they get called all over the world. But they very also have to have a good karto player and a good mridanga player. Otherwise, it's very hard for them to do it right, you know. I was in Bali, Madhava was visiting, and so there's one boy there, a young boy, and he's a very, talented mridanga player. But usually he plays so loud and so fast and, just like, really impossible. And then I came in the middle of a kirtan with Madhava, and I heard this very sweet mridanga, and I was thinking, who's playing that mridanga? And then I got closer, I could see it was him. So I asked him afterwards, and Madhava said, you play like this or you don't play, That's it. And no fooling around, just 2 or 3 different beats and that's it. And one time he didn't find the mridanga player he wanted, he went without a mridanga. But, mostly everyone glorifies the singer, but the singer will glorify the others also. In any band, they need that rhythm section. They need all that. So everybody's important. And they water the root of the tree, and everyone flourishes. And one morning walk in Vrindavan, there was a local sadhu guy walking with Prabhupada. And Prabhupada was joking around with him. And he was talking, it's all one, and there's that saying, Manava Seva, Madhava Seva, one of the big Mayavadis. Serve man and you serve God. And so Prabhupada, there was a big tree, a really big tree, and Prabhupada said, you see that tree? He said, yes. Prabhupada said, could you water every leaf on that tree? And he said, no. Prabhupada laughed and he said, even if you could, it wouldn't help the tree. You have to water the root. But then he said, but don't worry, you have Gandhi disease, but we will cure you. So you have to water the root. It means you worship Lord Nrsimhadev, we worship Krishna, and you will flourish and all the devotees will flourish. The whole world will flourish. Because when you water the root, the water goes to all the leaves and fruits and everything. Otherwise you can't go around injecting water into all the coconuts on the tree. It somehow goes up the tree magically and gets completely purified on the way and goes into the coconut. And then you get to... All right, so focus on worshiping Krishna. Everyone worships Krishna in their own way. Every temple maybe have a little bit different how they offer artik or something, and how they cook, but how they dress the deity, but those are all details. They're worshiping Krishna. You're worshiping Krishna. Together we can create, much more impressive Harinam or something with more devotees. So everybody's important. All right? So please pray for me, Prabhupada. We all need help.
Yeah, I have another question. Hare Krishna, thank you for your lecture. I was wondering, to reach Krishna consciousness, you need to detach from everything that is ego, right? But if you detach from everything that is ego, are you allowed to have material desires, and what is your understanding of it? Because I know it's spoken in the Bhagavad Gita, but what is your understanding?
What do you mean by material desire? What do you mean by that?
Are you allowed to have material desires for yourself, and how do you know these are the right desires?
Well, we learn from Bhagavad Gita, we learn from example of the life of devotees. Material desire, in the sense that we use it, I mean, you can desire to, but it means for my own pleasure separate from Krishna. So we don't want that. You can't, you can have it, but it won't do you much good. Therefore, it's discouraged. But see, by serving Krishna, it's not that we are deprived of eating and sleeping and all those things. You know, we can want things. The main thing is that we have to dovetail it, that everything is somehow goes for the service of Krishna. Prabhupada used that term dovetail a lot in the early times and in the early books. I haven't been hearing it very much lately, but just wherever I was reading Bhagavatam recently, it was coming up quite often. But it just means like the dove is a bird, you know, the pigeon, and the tail goes out, but all the feathers come into one point. So in construction also you do that. When they make a roof or something, and things, you bring everything into one place, and they go out like that. So we bring down all our material desires so that everything can be used in the service of Krishna. And then gradually they become actually spiritual desires. You're shopping, but you're shopping not only for yourself, but for Krishna also. Dressing for Krishna. You know, if we put on tilak, then, you know, it's not a material desire of decorating the body, but it decorates the body for Krishna's pleasure. We dress modestly, you know, it's pleasing to Krishna. We keep modest haircuts for Krishna's pleasure. So,
Thank you for that.
that help? Anyone else can say something? Anyone here who doesn't have any material desires? But, you know, material desire may be like extreme material desires like vengeance, you know, things like that, angry. You want to think you'll satisfy yourself? No, but simple things like I'm asking, what do you mean by material desire? You want to get married? Yeah, that's all right. But why do you want to get married? If if it will help you and the person you marry to serve Krishna, then it's very good. So in one sense, it's sort of a material desire, but there's many incidences in the Bhagavatam of great sadhus, great, you know, like Kardama Muni, but he had a desire to marry. But it wasn't, you know, for sense gratification. For Krishna's pleasure. So in one sense, it can be called a material desire. But yeah, Krishna can't say you can't have any, just whatever you have, try to use it for Krishna, add Krishna, develop some Krishna desires. Like generally eating is a material desire. But if you want to eat prasadam, then it's spiritual. So, because prasadam is Krishna, it's a yoga process. But then if we want to eat until we pass out, then it's mixed. It's not exactly right.
Thank you.
All right? Yes. Yeah, good. You explain it.
In the beginning of his question, he mentioned also false ego. So I was thinking that one can be free from false ego, but still pursue material desires if one learns to do everything in relation to Krishna. Is it like this or not? Like the sense of false ego is eradicated if one properly hears and chants and reflects.
Something like that.
Is
False
it like
ego means I think I'm this body. And I think this is me. The body is me. You know, ahankara. Can make it understanding like if you just Sanskrit is ahankara, akara means the body, but I am this body. But in English, car, you know, and people really identify, I am this car, you know. I am a Ford, I'm a BMW, I'm a whatever it is, you know. Somebody hits their car, you hurt me, you know, and they cry. A little scratch on their car. So, but you're not that car. You identify with it and you think it because I have this particular car that I'm a particular special, you know, whether it's particularly, I don't know anymore now, people thought when they get electric car there's something special because they're saving the planet. You know, then they find out that electric cars are worse for the planet, you know, but can have material desires. We want to have some nice thing to serve Krishna. So it's not exactly a material body. Devotees were looking for a new house one time, and so they were showing Prabhupada one place that was available, and the devotee asked, can we pray to get this? You know, would that be like a material desire to pray to get this house? I said, no, you want it for Krishna's service, so then it's okay. It's a material thing, but you're going to use it for Krishna. Ultimately, you know, someone is a total Paramahansa, then they would know it. But we're not that. We can't pretend to be that. But so we try to, you know, more and more just use everything for Krishna. Whatever you have, you just offer it. You know it belongs to Krishna. The body belongs to Krishna. And whatever you have, everybody has something that's in their name, kind of, you know. But we just use it for Krishna. Whether it's intelligence, beauty, fame, you know, fortune, money, power, talent. Saw some little things come from the Olympics. All kinds of people won a gold medal or something, and they hold up a verse from the Bible and say, give credit to Jesus, you know. So they wanted to become the Olympic champion, but then they use it to glorify Jesus. I don't know if any devotees are becoming Olympic champions. Devotees are becoming, they don't have a book distribution Olympics. But we have our internal Olympics, book distribution, you know, kirtans for temples, you know, whatever. Prasadam distribution. Setting records every day, you know. But give credit, all credit goes to Krishna. Okay? Yes?
I'm sorry, I'm bold, but I am thinking that you have joined this movement in early days, and we don't have that fortune. And maybe you can tell anything which you think important for us or inspiring for us from those times when Srila Prabhupada was physically present.
Well, there's a word, now they call it what, diaspora or something, the type of people. I was in New York a few years ago, and we were staying in Harlem. If you know anything about New York, Harlem was famous some time ago. It was all the so-called black people or African Americans or whatever, and it was considered very dangerous. And there were some good things there, like fantastic entertainment and things, and the musicians and stuff. But the devotees were living there, and I saw a sign that said the gentrification of Harlem. I didn't know what gentrification was at the time exactly, but it just means, it's getting all mixed up now. All kinds of people living there, and it's, the rents are like fantastically high rent, and so the movement is like that. It's a whole different. In the early days, everywhere, mostly young people joined. They weren't married, very many of them. So everybody was young, everybody was German in Germany, everyone was American in America, everyone was Nigerian in Nigeria, and so that, it was very easy to be one-pointed and get a teamwork idea and everything. Now, everywhere we have, all mixed up, gentrification. We got Indians, and Indians aren't all the same either. There's South Indians, there's Bengalis, there's, all different Indians, right? They all have different mother tongues and different ideas about even Krishna consciousness or Hinduism. And then we have people from so many different countries. So that's different, but one thing stays the same at Krishna, and we're doing the same kirtan, we're doing the same deity worship. We're making temples. Krishna's in everyone's heart. So there was like Prabhupada came at a perfect time, of course. When he came to America, it was revolution time, dissatisfaction with material life, because America was on top of the world as far as, winning the wars and economy, and, it was a big brother to everybody, giving charity, but rebuilding all the places they smashed, and everybody had a good education, practically. Well, not everybody, but at least. And then there was the civil rights, all this revolutionary kind of stuff. And Prabhupada came with the ultimate revolution, give it all up. And so many, many people joined. There's a huge energy. And that happened when those devotees came to Germany, when they went to Australia. Hari Sari said, like, when he joined in, I don't know where it was, Sydney or Melbourne or wherever it was, and there was like 10 devotees, and a couple months later there was 50 or 60 devotees in a small temple. Things happening really fast like that. Now it's much different, and mostly congregational members, but that's in one sense external, but it's there, so we have to deal with it, but we're still trying to get everybody to chant the holy name, the same mantras, the same pujas, the same offer everything to Krishna, start with offering all your food to Krishna. Normally eating is their main material desire. So just offer whatever you're going to eat to Krishna. make sure it's offerable. Can't offer just anything. Like Sahajiyas think they offer their intoxication, and then it's all right. No, it's not like that. So, yeah. So that, it was always a struggle. We had to get along and get along with every other devotees. There's always people we didn't agree with. It was, I wasn't there in the really early time, but then it was really wild. Can ask Mother Malati or something about that, or read some of the books. But Prabhupada was always there, and Prabhupada's still there. Prabhupada's guidance is there, all his books are there. And his example, so we need to study Prabhupada's life and, how he did things, how he dealt with different kinds of devotees, how he applied. Lord Chaitanya is a perfect person, Bhagavat. He lived completely by Bhagavatam. So we have all that. So we have advantages because now we have a big established society. People have heard of it, Krishna, and everywhere in the world. People have heard of the Bhagavad Gita. They want it. They're looking for it. And it wasn't like that in the early days either. But it's always, in one sense, it's simultaneously one and different. And everyone had different experience, no matter when they joined. But one day at a time, every day should be a brand new day. It's a whole new opportunity to serve Krishna. All right? You want to say something, Maharaj? You heard that question about the material desires? I was looking for you to answer that. Because but what time will his class be this afternoon? Huh? Right, they scheduled you, right?
Yes.
5:30, all right. So everyone please come. Tomorrow will be a Mahaharinam in Munich, Munchen, right? All right? Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai. This is Ekadasi, so it means more chanting. There was some speculation years ago that Ekadasi was an inauspicious astrological arrangement, so that's why we chant more to counteract the inauspiciousness. So Tamal Krishnaraj asked Prabhupada on a walk about that. Prabhupada said, oh no, an Ekadasi is very auspicious and everything is much better, that's why we chant more. So whatever you do, if you fast or eat feasting or whatever, try to chant more, read more. You get more benefit than other days, more shelter. And Shingadev ki jai. He's got a little house today, huh? Yeah. It's a spectacular puja here. I don't think any temple has such, amazing puja and service to the Lord. Focused on only one deity and so much opulence. Shri Shingadev Bhagavan ki jai. Singhachalam Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai. Dhruva Maharaj ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari. turn this thing off. Shina Shinga Jaina Shinga.